Welcome back, everyone. I wanted to go over some skill changes that might be possible for a few reasons. Talking to Shadow, one thing he wants to do is potentially also edit skill trees. Now, talking to him in that, he did say there's some technical difficulties with it, and it's not 100% that he's going to actually be able to do it, but it is something he wants to do, and he's been looking at from my conversations with him. Not to speak for him, of course. So, disclaimer before I do this, there is no guarantee this is going to happen, but since he told me he's working on it, I wanted to kind of preempt that by going over what I would change in the skill trees. Now, I want to put a second disclaimer on this that Shadow's worked his ass off, and I don't want him to get any flack if you guys like my ideas and let's say Shadow disagrees with them and doesn't do them. I do not want anyone giving him any shit over it. That was a nice jump to my death. So, full disclaimer there. These are just suggestions. They're very mild and light suggestions. And I want to try to keep things somewhat simple, but I'm going to go over a few complicated things that are very much a wish list. So let's look at the skill tree here. First one, I'm just going to go tree by tree. So, accelerate. This is one that's very low on the list. The bullet speed on Maya, I don't think is needed greatly because she's got phase lock and subsequence and converge and all of her crowd control. She's the character that least needs bullet speed. Now there are some guns, especially popular guns that she likes, that does get a lot of use out of it, like plasma casters and the Sandhawk. So that's why this is a very light suggestion. But I wouldn't mind this being replaced with swap speed because she doesn't have any swap speed. But then again, she's got so many slag options, she has less need for the swap speed. So this one's like very kind of minor. Next one is kinetic reflection. Now this skill at 5 out of 5 is just okay. At 10 out of 5 it's pretty awesome. 11 out of 5 it's great. But the deflected bullets don't really hurt the enemies at all. They just ding the enemies. And if you look at the antagonist that was built for UVHM, deflected bullet damage is 880%. The kinetic reflection at most it goes up to 100%. And therein lies the problem. I would like it if the deflected bullet damage, maybe not the 880% of the antagonist, but maybe halfway there, around 400% at max. So I'd like that to scale heavier, and then I think this skill would be better. But that's all I would change. The rest of this tree I think is like perfect. I love ward, suspension, fleet's great what it is, converge is amazing, quicken, no complaints. I don't love thought lock, but I wouldn't change it. So, one possible change, but I don't even know if it's a great idea to be honest, but it's just something that popped in my head, and one that I think would really help kinetic reflection. Next, Mind's Eye. This is a big one I would really love, is melee damage goes away and change it to accuracy. By doing that, it kind of opens up Maya to better shotgun builds, which is always fun with her. And it just goes along more with Mind's Eye. So that's something I would like to see for sure. And if not accuracy, maybe recoil reduction, which would go with sniping. Keep your shots on target. Sweet Release I wouldn't touch. Wreck I wouldn't touch. Restoration I wouldn't touch. Elated I wouldn't touch. Res needs something else. Now this is one I keep thinking about what it needs and I'm not sure. So since it's Fight for Your Life, well, my dream would be, what it would do is if you go into Fight for Your Life, well, you have phase lock up, you don't lose phase lock. I hate how that disappears when you go down. But that's probably way too complicated. So I would just like to add an attribute to it. And we already have immolate, so adding fight for light damage seems redundant, but it could be something. In case you don't get immolate, you get something in solo play. Fight for your life timer, maybe a slight boost to movement speed, even though it makes no sense. She's already so tanky. I thought about maybe a little damage reduction, but that seems overkill. Maybe if it was like a small, like 10% damage reduction or something, but something so it gives you something in solo play. Recompense is really hard. So the more points you put into it, you got a better chance to hurt your attacker when you take health damage. Now, you can get this to 100%, and there's actually a build out there that only works up to like OP3 that with it 100% you slag yourself, so you take more damage, therefore it does more damage to the enemy, but if you hold the grog, you heal above health gate constantly by doing damage back as they damage you, and you just can't die. Like, you can fight Pyro Pete and just keep slagging yourself and hold the grog, and he'll die by his dots hurting you and hurting him, and you just keep health gating through it. It's boring as fuck, but it's a thing. So the problem is, once damage reduction goes into the formula, it no longer works. So this is cool in theory. I don't know how to fix this, especially with damage reduction. So maybe this is one you just leave alone, unless someone else has got a better idea. If you could increase the damage it does back to them, that would help alleviate that. And it would kind of speed up the unkillable thing, so it would be a more popular build. But it would be kind of a broken build, so I don't even know if that's a good thing. So I'm really torn on this, and I'm tempted just to leave it alone. Even though it's kind of a skill not many people take outside of one niche build that only works up to OP3. Sustenance, Life Tap, and Scorn, I would leave all of them alone. I think they're fantastic. So up here, Flicker. A lot of people originally were disappointed that Flicker only helped your dot chance and doesn't do any damage. I don't think it should boost elemental damage, but if it also boosted dot damage, that would be kind of cool. It would help Maya, but the problem with that, it would make Maya more effective as an elemental character, and it would make her better at mobbing, but like, raid bosses don't really take dots anyways, so it wouldn't help her raid. And she's already a great mobber, and she's not a good raider, so I don't even know if I would bother with that, but people would like that. I wouldn't change Foresight. I wouldn't change Immolate. Now, Helios, Backdraft, and Blight Phoenix, as well as, I guess, Rune, all these got a buff in that last patch Gearbox did, but the only one that seems to really work is Helios. And I think the rest still need a damage buff. Now, what I would do to Helios, if possible, and I don't know if this is possible, but change the order of operation in which it procs. The reason that Helios comes before Rune when you phase lock something, therefore usually Slag is not yet applied. Now, Helios works great in subsequence builds because you hit that group of enemies, Slag's applied, you kill one, they're all kind of weakened, and then you pick up another character, and then they get hit with the Helios, and a lot of them die. Then you have Cloud Kill in there, and Chain Reaction in there, and so forth. Helios works great with subsequence, especially boosted by the binder. So I don't know if it needs a damage increase, maybe a slight one, maybe like 10%, 5%, something little. I don't think it needs a lot more damage, but if it could come after Rune all the time, it would be very good. Backdraft, I hate the melee part of it because I just want to get rid of melee. Maya just take away all of her melee. But that, again, might be complicated. If it was possible to change that melee, adding it to your melee and just make it like a spike, so it's kind of like you have a Height of Terra on at all times without the roid damage, but just a spike and fire shield, I think that would be cooler. Of course, that's kind of redundant with Blight Phoenix, so I guess I would just leave this alone and just buff the damage a little bit. I know the Novas can do a lot when you do the carpet bombing build, but outside of that, it's not very good. and I don't think the carpet bombing would improve if you boosted this the damage here. But it's still not like a build people run around just destroying everything. So, yeah. Wouldn't worry about that too much. Blight Phoenix just needs a damage boost. Plain and simple. It desperately needs it. It just doesn't do a lot of damage. Now, the one that might kind of surprise people, I was going to say Rune, same thing, just damage buff. I think Reaper needs to change. Now, the simple fix is to take off the 50% health remaining. Now, some people are like, oh, that's broken. Reaper is such a good skill already. Here's the problem. As I already said, Maya is probably the worst raider in the game. And one of the reasons is on half of the raids, you can't use phase lock. In the other half, you can only use it occasionally. You don't always have ads out there. You sometimes have ads and you don't. Sometimes don't. So with that, you lose Wreck, one of her best DPS skills. You lose Sweet Release and Elated, two of her best survival skills. And if you're not getting kills, you lose, a lot of her survival too would come off like Life Tap, Kinetic Reflection, or Inertia, and KR doesn't really do anything on raids anyways. So you lose a lot when you fight raid bosses with Maya. Suspension does nothing, Subsequence does nothing. So that hurts. And Reaper, once you get that raid boss down to the second half of their health bar, you lose Reaper as well. And now what do you have? Accelerate? Mind's Eye? That's it? That's not much. This is why she's shitty at raiding. So I really think that Reaper's it should just be on all the time. Now, the pie in the sky part of this, and this will be beyond Maya, splash damage is stupid and complicated. And there's only like 5 or 6 guns that get Reaper on the splash. So if it was possible, I'd like it to change that Reaper affected grenade damage guns, and then take those few guns like the Pimpernel, the little EV, some slow hand splat guns, and change those to get grenade damage. Therefore, there's really 2 splashes, rocket and grenade. And if it's on a gun, it gets grenade. If it's on a rocket launcher or some of the rocket-barreled Torg assault rifles, it gets rocket damage. That would also open up Maya to using a lot more guns and help her be a better raider. It would help her chuck, because grenade damage for chucking. It would really open up her options. And it wouldn't make her more broken on mobbing, because if you think about it, Reaper, you hit them so hard on the top half of their health bar that they got like 10-20% left. It's not like having Reaper left with that 10 or 20% is going to make you that much better. They would die without it. So I think by changing Reaper to the full health bar really helps her rating. Changing it to grenade damage, that's pie in the sky. It might be insanely complicated. So I don't really want to ask for that, but that's like dreaming. And that would be my changes. So in hindsight, or in recap, accelerate bullet speed to swap speed. I'm not even sure that's a good idea. Deflected bullet damage, basically do it times 4, get it up to about 400%, half the antagonist. Mind's Eye to either accuracy or recoil reduction. Res, some kind of passive stat. It could go along with fight for your life. If not, just some kind of general helpful small damage reduction, slight movement speed, something little to help her out. Flicker, possibly add dot damage to it. Boost all of her dot skills outside of Cloud Kill a little bit more. Change the order of Helios as possible. And then I just went over the Reaper thing. So that would be how I would change Maya's skill trees. Not a ton, I don't think, but I'm going to be doing this with all the characters, and I really encourage you guys to let me know what you think of what I went over. What are your ideas? Where do you agree, disagree? You know, it's a cool thing to think about. It's a fun thing to think about, even if it doesn't happen. But if it does, it's a better thing for us to kind of have a conversation about it early in a big way, and that can just help everyone kind of think through it and maybe hit it a little bit better the first time. So if you do come up with ideas, though, let's keep them somewhat realistic and somewhat doable. I know I went through some of them that seemed a little more complicated, but I kind of said, like, I don't think these would actually happen because they seem too complicated. That's all I got for you today. I will get back to some more gun videos. I got some cool ideas in the works, so you can probably guess on some ideas I have here. Thanks for watching once again, and I will see you all later. Wow, I really spawned those guys from out there. Bye.